Hello, I'm Joni Farthing and I'm mother of the bride. I'm going to look at how do you heat a tent or marquee? What sort of heaters are out there and which are the right ones to choose? Now, if you've always done everything in terms of your home or domestically, when you're thinking about heating a small space, I'm sure you think, what about some of those little electric fan heaters? We could run a few of those. Yes, you absolutely could. But they stand on the floor. So watch out if you've got a lot of children at the wedding because they could trip over them. So you might have to think a little bit about where you're going to place those. The great thing about fan heaters, there's no smell. But they're only really for quite small tents. For example, if you are putting an awning out to extend your sitting room or something like that, then you might well place one or two of these little heaters there. Now, the next heater you'll find, especially if you're going to Google it, is you'll certainly find patio heaters. They're inexpensive, and if you Google your local area, you will certainly find people who will rent them to you. So what are the drawbacks? One very massive drawback is safety. So when you're thinking about a patio heater, it's not impossible to put them in a tent or marquee, and you will find people advertising them for that. But just make sure you've got a nice high tent and also that you don't have a draped ceiling. Under no circumstances, even if it's a very high tent, would I use a draped ceiling because that drapery could fall down. In terms of safety, only use a patio heater inside if you've got a high tent, no draped ceiling, and no draped dried flowers or anything else, or little paper lanterns, anything that could catch fire. And also make sure that you place that heater or heaters in the highest point of the tent. What those heaters are great for is a little area, again like an awning over one side of the house, where they stand just outside of the awning, welcoming people in. The other thing about patio heaters is make sure that the one that you rent has some kind of a container fixed to the bottom where you can put sand in. This is a tall, narrow structure. Now, when it's delivered to you, it will have a full tank of fuel within it, propane gas probably, and this will weight it down. But as the evening goes on, that tank will get burned off and it will get lighter and lighter. And it's at that point, after a few drinks, that a helpful guest will say, let's reposition this. Oh, and it falls over. Or even worse, children start playing around it and it tilts over. So you need the sand as ballast to keep it steady all night long. So I think the positives, not expensive, easy to find, easy to rent, and everybody likes the look. So third type of heater, if you're looking at cost, you'll suddenly see that there are all these wonderful space heaters or direct heaters, or, and this is the message, industrial space heaters. So you look at them and you think, well, now you can heat a warehouse with that. That would be ideal for our large tent. Absolutely forbidden. These heaters are inexpensive, so you will love the price, but they produce toxic fumes. They are highly dangerous. You are not running an industrial site or a building site, which is what they're produced for. So then we come to infrared heaters. Now these are certainly the best of the heaters that I've mentioned so far, and lots of marquee rental companies, tent rental companies will suggest them. So you need to position them well out of harm's way, which means helpful guests as well as little children. So they're usually attached to the poles that go around the corners between the roof and the walls of the marquee. So you'll probably have one in each corner. That's the likelihood. There's no smell, there's no noise, but you will need several. And at the end of this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to assess how many heaters you need by looking at kilowatts needed for cubic space, and I'll explain how you work that out. So if you're looking at infrared heaters, always look for what is the kilowatts of that heater. In other words, how much heat do they produce? And then you can use the sum that I give you at the end of this to find out how many you'd need. You might find that for a larger space, they're not such a great deal, but definitely worth looking at. Then we come to indirect heaters. So yes, they are the most expensive option. Indirect heaters do smell. That's because propane gas smells for a reason. It is manufactured to smell because it is a warning sign. However, indirect means it doesn't sit in the tent. It sits out back. You should be able to find somewhere behind your marquee where you can install it. Then there's a long flexible hose that comes through the walls into the marquee. And then on the inside, all you get is a sort of outlet that will spread the warmth around, and a way of turning it up or down and turning it off, a thermostat. Outside, it's not a pretty thing. It's ugly and it's quite large, but you should be able to find a way of hiding it. It's got a chimney, and this takes the toxic fumes up into the air. And however tall that chimney is will have been specifically measured to distribute the fumes that are produced well away from humans. So it isn't the kind of thing you want to lean on and have a cigarette, frankly, but it is the kind of thing which won't give a smell inside the tent and won't cause any sort of safety problem in terms of toxic fumes. The other great thing is, of course, they don't take up any space. So whereas patio heaters need a space and you don't really want people sitting right next to them for their meal, in terms of the indirect heaters, no problems. They sit outside, nobody knows they exist. What do professional companies use? Professional companies that do small events and small weddings generally use those infrared heaters. People that do outdoor events will have plenty of patio heaters, but professional companies will generally use those indirect heaters I've just been talking about. So given that they cost quite a lot of money, you want to get it right. You will need to work out from the dimensions what the cubic capacity of your tent is. If you can't remember your school maths, here's how you do it. So you're looking at multiplying together three things: height, width, and length. And on the website of whoever it is that's renting you the tent, they surely will have that, even if they don't give you the cubic capacity. You need to find out the cubic capacity of the structure that you want to heat, the tent or whatever, and then you need to know how much does 1 kilowatt heat of that, because all heaters will tell you their kilowattage, in other words, how much heat they give out. And you have to reckon it on these numbers. 1 kilowatt of heat will warm up to a sufficient level 10 cubic meters, or American style 350 cubic feet. So to give you an idea, a marquee of 9 by 16 meters or smaller will need one indirect heater giving out 25 kilowatts. However, go up a little bit and choose a 9 by 18 meter tent and you'll need 2 of those 25 kilowatt heaters. So it's a 3-part sum. How much heat does the heater give out? How much space does it need to heat? How many heaters do you need? And what's that cost? And you might be quite surprised by the result, I think. So all I've got left to say is keep warm, whether you're having a winter or a summer wedding, and have a wonderful day. And if you like this video, either go to my site, I'mMotherOfTheBride.com, and or subscribe below.